To say that this car has been hotly anticipated is probably putting it mildly, and I will come out right from the start and say that I am a fan of Mazda's CX line from the get-go. Why? Well, first of all, I feel it compares very favorably at price point, and two, I really like the styling. It's a little different, it's a little edgy, but not too radically different. And I'm happy to see that many of those characteristics have made it through to the new CX-30. If you're familiar with Mazda's CX line, then there is nothing here that's really going to blow you away as being significantly different from what you've already come to know and appreciate. What is nice is the way that this works within this size and profile of car. But I can tell you from personal experience that the controls are very intuitive, easy to utilize, and very pleasing to touch and interact with. They feel solid and well put together. I've got plenty of spacious room back here and it is very comfortable, but let's have a brief look at the legroom. So not quite as much as you might like, but don't forget this is one of the smaller models. So if you are thinking of standardly needing to transport big guys around with you, you might want to look at the larger model up. So what do we think of the CX-30? Well, it's now in a very crowded marketplace, so the good news is if this isn't quite your taste, there are lots of other cars to choose from now. You don't have to be stuck with this. But I say stuck with this, that's something I personally would be very happy with. I can only recommend, if you haven't driven a Mazda for a while, take one out, give it a drive. The way the package all sits together is really nice. Brand new AMG GLE 53. Come with us. The first thing to mention about this car is it's not only the styling that's AMG, it's AMG through and through. That means new engine, gearbox, handling, chassis, suspension, the works. And that really does relate to how the car's obviously going to be driving. We have optional 20 to 22 inch wheels, so that's certainly making a statement within the framework of these massive wheel arches. Yeah, we still have that massive power suggested by these nice matching exhausts, and this really nice air diffuser right on the bottom is a 6-cylinder 3-litre twin turbocharged, producing 435 horsepower and 520 newton meters of torque. But it doesn't stop there. It's got a 48-volt system, which is also providing an additional, or factored in, 250 newton meters of torque at go, and an extra little kick to your acceleration. That's going to give you a 0 to 100 speed of 5.3 seconds. So when we do have a little bit of a look at the lower section here, when we see all of the features that we can adjust, the sound, the dampers, the car ride height, the traction control, it's all AMG. The drive modes are specific and particular to AMG. So the idea behind the DNA of the car is that it will drive like a Mercedes, but not like a Mercedes. Now, if you want to know how on earth that makes any sense, if you've ever driven a regular Mercedes and then taken out its AMG brother, you'll know exactly what I mean. Coming through to the back, it's important that as much of that experience of comfort and quality is brought back here as possible. And I'm happy to see that we have the same attention paid not only to the quality of materials, but also to the usability of it.
It's the Audi e-tron GT, the first full electric sports vehicle by Audi. You see, from a basic form, it could also be relating to an Audi A7, but as I said, it is on an all-new platform that is really laid out for the all-electric vehicles. Here in the front, you can see there's a closed front grille in the top right there, because you do not need so much cooling for the electric vehicles. The length is 4.96 meters, 16'3" or 195 inches. And if you, for example, compare it to an Audi A7, you see that the roofline is even flatter. So it's a very, very flat design here, together with dramatic 22-inch wheels. A very dramatic design for the rear. We know also this going through light stripe already from the existing combustion engine models and also from the e-tron SUV. This is carried out all over here. Porsche also does that meanwhile. And those beautifully done seats here, look at that, also with the gray fabric down there at the seats. You can see it in this, in the lower and in the upper area. The whole interior is covered in this bright and gray surface. It really makes a bright living room effect. I just love it when looking at it. And this fabric here, it feels durable, it feels cozy. I think it's an excellent choice. Interior overview, you can see they have those floating elements, for example, for the central screen. Right there is in demo, is in show mode, but you can see this has this ebb view.
Refresh of the GLC. What's changed in the refresh? Well, we have slightly shallower headlamps here in the front and a redesigned bottom third. Now this does make a slightly bigger statement on the road. Coming through to the side of the car, and we can see that pretty much nothing has changed here. I guess a little bit lacking in character has now been beefed up with the lower third of this car. Mercedes said the #1 piece of feedback that they had in terms of the driver experience of this vehicle was the way that the instruments presented to the driver. I really like the way this screen has been integrated. A lot of drivers, a lot of our viewers don't like floating screens, and the quality of the screen is of course excellent. It looks and feels great. The standard Mercedes-Benz touch controls that you've come to know and love over the years are still very much present, and they are still excellent in terms of how they work and how you can interact with them. Well, you know what? It's the Burmeister grill, but finally it's smooth. So somebody was listening at some point. We were able to really enjoy touching the surfaces in this car. They're all very nicely put together. So digital interface, as you can see, currently, for reasons best known to somebody else, it seems to be set for Chinese, but it's really, really effortless.
This is the Audi Q4 e-tron. Slim LED headlamps, and you can see what's very special here, that the paint of the vehicle is also placed in the front grille. A very beautiful design idea, I think. The paint itself is called Solar Sky. It's a very special paint. First of all, it has those reflecting dots in it, and also the material of the paint. So the raw material is more sustainable, so they even paid attention to give sustainability to the paint. 4 meters 59, 15 foot or 181 inches is the total length, with this light design all over the vehicle, and also this illuminated e-tron badge. I wonder if that one will be allowed in a series production model. Looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Also with this massive diffuser right here. And talking of powerful, it will come with an 82 kilowatt hour battery and then 2 electric motors, either just one at the rear when you go for a single setup, or then also with a dual motor setup. Again, with their future vehicles, Audi went for a model to offer a more sustainable interior, and also with some interesting fabrics. Bright fabric on the inside, then some microfiber use on the outside, and some leatherette applications on the very outside. It looks beautiful, it looks sporty, it's a cozy living room atmosphere, and really very elegant with those bright colors. And all digital gauges here. They're a little bit smaller than with current digital gauges in the series production models. Let's see how that one plays out later. Also very beautiful that they use this microfiber on top of the dashboard. So if we talk about, using black plain plastics, that is something from the past. Here you can have a tactile experience. It's now the strongest Volkswagen in their whole lineup, the new Touareg V8 TDI. Let's fill you in with the power details and also a quick tour. And in this case, we start directly with the engine. This one here is the 4-liter V8 TDI, so it's a turbo diesel. 422 horsepower and 900 Newton meters of torque. So at the moment, this one is the strongest stock engine you can buy at VW. The acceleration figure is 4.9 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. And 4.9 seconds, you might remember, this is also the acceleration figure of the freshly presented T-Roc R.
And this is the brand new CLA shooting brake from Mercedes. Let's take a closer look. What's changed with this model? Well, I can tell you that we are now 53 millimeters wider. So what is that for Imperial, guys? It's about that. The CLA is now 48 millimeters longer, and in conjunction with that decreased height ride of 2 millimeters, what you can see is that really does increase the sportiness of the feel. Now, it's not only that. Remember when I said if you like the character lines, maybe you should remove one? Well, that is what has happened at the shoulder height. Gone is this defining shoulder height line. Now, this for me is the real story of success of this car. Why? Well, practicality is a very important issue, and one of the reasons I've always disliked the shooting brake is the fact that the boot was almost laughable and unusable. Well, guess what? It's now been increased by 53 millimeters in load width. That's about that. Now, that might not seem like an awful lot of room, but trust me, when you're trying to get stuff in the back of here, it makes all the difference in the world. Well, from the moment that you open the door, these frameless windows really tell you that this is a shooting brake. And from the second that you take a glance in the interior, everything in there reinforces that idea. So there's nothing in here that should blow your mind or really set this apart from a lot of other cars, but it's the individual stylistic details that add up together to let you know exactly what car you're sitting in. And you can even see that the moment that you stare at the door. It's just the way that things are laid out, and it's the attention to detail. Just look at the way that this detail has been carried out with this aluminium effect right here. In keeping with the styling of the car, a lot of details have been carried over from other lines that really reinforce the idea that styling is key. What do I mean by that? Well, there are 64 ambient lighting modes. Okay, that's not a new idea. An E-Class had that 2 years ago. But there are 10 color worlds and 3 color zones for this car. A lot of attention has been paid with the increased dimensions of this car into making the back of it a lot more usable, and it really shows. So again, 5'10", 178 centimeters, and for the first time ever in a shooting brake, I have more than enough headroom. The Polestar 2. Being billed as the Tesla 3 competition, obviously styling is key in this market. It's really important for a fully electric model to punch a little bit above its weight when it comes to styling. So what do you think at this? Take a look. Well, it is a very nice, new, bold look. How a lot of those lines that you usually only associate with the concept have managed to stay right through to the full production model. This is a very distinctive, light signature. What is powering this thing is a 78 kilowatt hour battery. That's giving it a mile range of approximately 275 miles. If that doesn't sound amazing, that's because don't forget they changed the standards. According to the old rules, that would have been closer and comparable to a 500 kilometer range. It's all-wheel drive, it produces 408 horsepower, and it will do 0 to 100 in 4.7 seconds. It also kicks out 660 Newton meters of torque. So, it's going to give you a fair amount of bang for your buck. Still a bit sad we can't take a look at the motor. Let's take a closer look inside. Well, I think the first two things that really occur to you when you start looking at the interior of the Polestar 2 is how important it has been to express quality of material within the finish of this vehicle. This is the first car from a major mainstream manufacturer to be advertised as vegan, and that's a really significant step. Whether you're interested in that or not, it's very interesting to see how sustainability is starting to become something that manufacturers will commodify and take advantage of. For me personally, I'm always enthusiastic to see sustainability baked in wherever it can have any support. And these seats, I think, are really great. Honestly, I don't think leather's the best material when you add into it, and you really have to, the way in which it's produced. You can see Volvo through and through. I know the Polestar is a separate entity. I understand that this being a fully electric car, it's a little bit different. But let's not forget, Volvo made a commitment that from 2019, they would not release a single vehicle that was not at least a hybrid. So this represents quite a bold statement about the future for the company as a whole. If that isn't a clear nod towards Tesla, I don't know what is. It's a large screen, and that's not to everybody's taste, but it does come with Android already baked into it. It's the brand new Renault Clio. Given that every single component part of this car is completely new, it is very impressive how much of the design characteristic and the DNA of the Clio has managed to remain within this car. That said, it looks much more assertive and sculptural. Whether you like that or not, you certainly can't complain that Renault haven't innovated when it comes to what they're doing with the interior on this new Clio. My goodness, that is really a radical change from what came before. I'm just going to hop in and see how the driving experience feels. So the seat feels pretty standard, much as expected. If you're used to putting up a lot of miles in the predecessor, I don't think you're going to be disappointed or particularly blown away by your seating comfort. What has changed very much is your depth within the car. You might remember me mentioning when we were outside that a lot of the design cues look to me as if they've been borrowed from the SUV playbook. Well, the driving experience has obviously reached into the same manual. It is a small car, and I think Renault have made good use of the interior room. For me, for a small car, I always want the priority in the front. After all, even the most busy parent is not driving around with all of their children all of the time. So the driver's experience really is paramount for me. Well, that's fine. I like the way it's tucked away visually, but obviously I think you're going to get your hand more than a little bit dirty on that spot in the winter. So I'm not sure if there are any plans to add keyless entry at this stage. I suspect not. But I think you'll just have to get used to touching that without touching too much of anything else. The new Peugeot 208. I can tell you that you can actually pick between 3 petrols and a diesel to start with. This clearly is the electric, and it's providing a lot more power than would realistically have been previously possible. What you're looking at right now is a 50 kilowatt hour battery, and it's hooked up to a 100 kilowatt electric motor. So if you want to compare that to its petrol and diesel brothers, you're looking at around about 134 horsepower. So that's a lot more powerful than you'd expect, and it's actually not far behind the 148 horsepower Nissan Leaf. So it should deliver you a pretty good bang for your buck. Digital infotainment application, well, you're going to be right at home here. I have to tell you, we have a floating digital display here. Now, that is a little disarming to say the least. You can actually see information overlaid on top of the digital display, the main cockpit digital display that's set right back deep into that dashboard. So when we look at, for example, the central infotainment screen, it looks a little bit plasticky, a little bit shiny on the piano black, but it's in keeping with the original design of this dashboard. Look at these instrument keys down here. Again, these look like a refreshed and updated take on its bigger brother, the 508. Well, okay, it's a small car. You're not going to expect it to be cavernous back here, but I have to tell you, it's actually reasonably comfortable. I think reasonably is the fair word to pick. Given that you're not usually going to be traveling with fully grown passengers in the back, the headrests are integrated into the seat design, so you actually have to wiggle them up a little bit to make them comfortable if you're going to sit back here, but I like the way they pop out of the way visually. Might be a small car, but you're still going to need to transport things around in it, so do we have enough space back here to make that viable? Well, I think they've done quite a pleasing job, actually. There is a reasonable amount of room here, and you even have little additional areas of storage.
All-new Skoda Kamiq. In the front, the Kamiq gets the typical Skoda front grille, and then those very slim LED daytime running lights from this Czech-inspired glass craftsmanship. Very interesting. 4 meters 24 or 167 inches is the total length, and you might wonder, wait a minute, this is the length of a compact segment vehicle, but it is based on a small car platform, the MQB A0, and the sibling would be Seat Arona and the Volkswagen T-Cross. But as Skoda usually does with the same vehicle, they go between those segments. Most interesting thing we can see are those new seats. They are completely new. They are from all fabric, and in this trim here they also have contrasting colors, so some bright elements right there and some darker, also gray. It's again this living room style that is actually at the moment more modern, and again a great example that it does not always have to be animal skin. It can also be a fabric that is also more breathable, so to say. So in summer times it doesn't get that hot, in the winter times doesn't get that cold. And this is the lowest position of the seat here at the moment. Manual control, and I'm 1 m 86 or 6'1", and this is one with a panoramic roof. I'll soon show you, but even if I have the panoramic roof, there's still a lot of headroom left. Interior overview again is a really nice, clean layout. Also looks quite good with the bright contrast here. And by the way, just as a proof, this one here is in diagonal is 20 centimeters, and that's 8 inch. So this leaves plenty of legroom. Wow, this is so spacious here. And I mean, if you think about other cars that have the same length, they've way less legroom. So this is, and also like how we can move here to the sides. The liter figures would be 400 liters like this, up to 1,400 liters when we flip it. You can see, you can also, I'm quite sure it's available. There's also in like a forked floor cover. You can also see the seal here. The Scala. It's a very interesting concept, technology-wise, also platform-wise, and what it will deliver for this exterior space, also on the interior. Let's take a look at it together. The Rapide was using an outdated platform. Here now the new Skoda Scala is using the MQB A0 platform that's also being used by the new Volkswagen Polo, for example, and also by the small SUVs. The Skoda Kamiq is basically a Scala SUV platform-wise. We also have a video of that one. Well, in the front right here you see the Skoda front grille that directly dissolves into those headlamps. You can see it's all touch. All three are touch, but this one is just the biggest diameter. This one is the GPS, just to take a look at it. Oh, they put the way to Praha in there. It also depends on how responsive it is, how good your internet connection is, because nowadays they're all online, those systems. No real buttons left. The smaller ones, even the 8-inch, will still have 2 buttons for the volume and also for zooming in and out on the right side. Now to a different interior. This is the Ambition trim, but we also have those sport seats here installed, and they are very beautifully done. Look at this quilted structure here on the seat. They have also more shoulder support. They have an integrated head restraint, and well, sometimes sport seats are less comfortable, but in this case I really have to say they bring more sportiness and more comfort at the same time. Still works very well, even with 4 tall adults, no problem. Let's open this glass hatch here. Wow, even an electric tailgate, and wow, this looks really spacious for such a vehicle segment. The width here is at 1 meters. It also goes down there, but also seen with the Skoda Kamiq, I think there will be also a floor cover available that it makes them with the same level. However, if you don't have the same level floor cover, then you have a higher area right there that is almost 60 centimeters. That's also pretty massive. And in the length right there, this is almost 90 centimeters in length. Well, to flip the seats, the easiest way is then to go around. With the electric seat, we cannot fold flat the co-driver seat, however, so we have to go around here too.
The Volkswagen ID Buggy, an electric beach buggy. Let's go. Looking at the beach buggy here in the front is very interesting because in the past year we've seen so much angular design. This is now a round shape, really a reminiscence of the old.
This is the Volkswagen T6 Facelift. Here in the front you can see the grille has a bigger shape, it looks stronger. Also there's more chrome being used, so everything is a little bit more shiny, so to say. This is also special copper paint that was released here right now. And this is also changed here, new LED daytime running signature and also new LED headlamps optional. Again, the new steering wheel. I really like the new modern design, looks a little bit more angular. I already liked the edit what introduced with the T-Cross. Then new digital instruments optional, 10.25 inch. And for the central infotainment unit, it starts with 6.5 inch, like in the Golf, 8 inch, and this one then is the optional 9.2 inch. You can see there are no physical buttons left. This is the biggest screen size. So infotainment and assistance systems update, this is the biggest change right. So many SUVs have their coupe form. If you think about X5 and X6 at BMW or X3 and X4, even at Audi, the Audi Q7, now the Audi Q8. Well, what about the electric vehicles? The Audi e-tron, the big electric SUV by Audi, will get the Audi e-tron Sportback. This one then is the SUV coupe version. And here still with some camouflage paint, but we can already see how it will play out. Let's go.
Honda's urban EV has now become Honda's e-prototype, and that's important because they are now saying that it's almost 100% ready for production. This is really very, very modern design. It looks like something that could have been used to transport people around in the film 2001: A Space Odyssey. With this being a prototype, we're not actually allowed to sit in the vehicle, but we can be in the vehicle as long as we're not too far in the vehicle. So let's take a closer look from outside, but almost in the vehicle. Well, when they tell you that it's close to being done, I have to say, if this really is representative of what they're going to do with the dash, to say that it's bold and futuristic, I think is an understatement. It's a concept vehicle from Mercedes. It is the EQV. That is their first fully electric passenger transport vehicle. Okay, well, that all sounds good, but what's the effective range, realistically?
Well, we are certifying this concept car with 400 kilometers, and then, as you know, it really depends on, are you driving it in winter, in summer, up the hill, down the hill, 160 kph, 60 kph, so it really depends on what you're doing. But I think if you can get more than 250 kilometers of real range, I think then we're talking about an actual use case.
Hi, I'm Brian. Welcome to Autogefuhl. Well, it would be remiss of us to report to you from Geneva without mentioning what smart we're up to. Styling is more or less exactly what you would expect from such a vehicle. I like the fact that they've given a bit of a nod to modernity with a different approach to the steering wheel, and after all, that does allow me a straight-through visibility to the dashboard. I really like this integration of the digital display within the analog dial, but tell me, what do you think?